Now we start in Europe, where the European Union leaders have pledged to guarantee financial support for Ukraine for the next 2 years, with work underway on legal and technical options to sustain the war-torn country's budget and defence needs. EU Council President Antonio Costa has said that Ukraine has resources to continue defending itself until 2027. Meanwhile, the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has said that the European Union has discussed the reparations loan that it is to be financed with immobilised Russian assets. Let's in fact listen in to what the two leaders have said.
European leaders committed to ensure that Ukraine's financial needs will be covered for the next 2 years. We have asked the Commission to put forward options as soon as possible, so that Ukraine has the resources it needs to continue defending itself and fight for a just and lasting peace in 2026 and 2027 if it's necessary. Russia should take good note of this. Ukraine will have the financial resources it needs to defend itself against Russia's aggression and in the foreseeable future. Now, the technical, legal and financial aspects of Europe's support need to be worked on, and we will return to this issue in the December European Council.
We had a good discussion on the reparations loan to be financed with immobilized Russian assets, and it allowed us to identify points we still need to clarify, and then indeed we will come back with the different options that we will develop. Let me underline again, we will always respect European and international law while we are taking this work forward that we've just.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has reacted to US sanctions against Russia. Macron has hailed Trump's sanctions on Russia as a right step in the right direction. Let's take a listen in to the French president.
À ce titre, les annonces récentes du président Trump vont à nos yeux dans la bonne direction, qui ont permis de dire très clairement la réalité de la situation, c'est-à-dire une Russie qui ne souhaite pas de manière véritable la paix, et ont permis de resynchroniser l'agenda européen et américain sur la question ukrainienne.
We're now joined by Professor Veselin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Professor Popovsky, for joining us live here on NewsX World. First of all, let's get into these financial guarantees that the European Union have supplied for Ukraine till the year of 2027. They will be funded by frozen Russian assets. Will this suffice? Antonio Costa's statement seemed very positive, and it says it will, in fact, be sufficient for the Ukrainian army to defend itself until the year of 2027. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, Thomas, it's a very significant news. It's a very positive news that the Europeans are already calculating carefully the costs. We don't know yet whether it will suffice, because we don't know how long the war itself will last. Imagine there is a change in a few months and Russia is withdrawing, and then the reconstructions happen fast and rapid. Although that's the positive, the optimistic scenario, we don't know how much of Ukraine will still be destroyed by further Russian attacks. But generally, this is the direction, which is very positive. Yes, the Russian frozen asset will be used because Russia is an aggressor. Russia produced all the damage. The criminal pay the crimes. That's a principle as old as millenniums old. So Russia should pay for the damage in Ukraine, and the frozen assets will do that partially. And still significantly, the numbers are high. And the more important is not the numbers, rather the commitment of the European Union here, very well expressed, that Ukraine will be strongly supported at least for the next 2 years, absolutely after that as well. But the expectation is after the reconstruction of Ukraine, the further support after 27 will take different forms, obviously military guarantee, security guarantee, and not so much financial burden.
And then, of course, we just heard from the French president. He called the US's new sanctions on these two major Moscow crude companies as a step in the right direction. Not, of course, huge praise, but of course a small comment. Your thoughts on those actions taken by the United States? Finally, some sanctions from Washington, which also there has been some worrisome statements from Vladimir Putin about the possibility of Russian oil being taken off the market. We've, of course, seen some action, of course, as well taken from the major buyers, that of Russia, of India and China. Your thoughts on the possibility of the decline of the purchase of Russian oil from their major purchasers?
Yes, another great news. You're absolutely right, Thomas. This is another significant development here because the United States is increasing the sanctions on Russia. So we don't have only full support for Ukraine, what we discussed earlier, but also a very strong message here that the United States, the most hesitant player here, will also be sanctioning Russia, supporting Ukraine, and crucially not negotiations with Putin. Again, we have another third great news that meeting in Budapest may not happen. So all three major factors are here: sanctions on Russia, full support for Ukraine, and no negotiations with Putin. And if all this is sustained over the next months, we definitely will see a change on the ground, and we hopefully will see the end of this already almost 4 years conflict in Ukraine. The constant hits on Russian oil capacities and refineries and transportations routes, airports, are also significant. Ukrainian drones go there, and they hit also the Russian energy infrastructure, generally more significantly in the bordering areas. And that also is important because Russian capacity to supply oil and gas gradually diminishes. And not only that India and China can buy less Russian oil and gas, but even those contracts that Russia is trying to sign for the future will obviously not materialize. Simply said, India and China should look for other suppliers, and they do. I'm sure Indians and Chinese already diversify their supplies because nobody can trust the Russian oil and gas anymore. It will be gone very quickly. There is no need to talk with Russia even for oil and gas supplies anymore.
Yes, Professor Popovsky, do stay with us. We have updates from the battlefield. The Russian Defense Ministry has said that the air defense forces have destroyed 25 Ukrainian drones in an hour. According to reports, all drones were shot down between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. Moscow time. Meanwhile, Moscow's mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, has said that air defense systems have downed 3 other drones en route to the Russian capital. Governor Andrei Voboryoryov has said earlier that reported including 5 people and 1 child were injured as a result of a drone attack on the Moscow region. Meanwhile, the Defense Ministry has reported that 111 Ukrainian drones have been intercepted and destroyed over Russian regions overnight. We are once again joined by Professor Popovsky. It's, of course, aerial warfare is ongoing, and drone warfare is ongoing during this conflict. But a prominent point of discussion over the past week or so has been these Tomahawk missiles. Of course, Professor Popovsky, Zelensky came out empty-handed from that White House meeting with President Donald Trump. But today, Vladimir Putin released a statement. He seems worried about the idea that Ukraine might get their hands on these long-range Tomahawk missiles and the capabilities that they have, especially given Donald Trump's new stance in this conflict. This, of course, comes after that cancelled meeting in Budapest, where Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin were set to meet. President Zelensky also gave quite a smug press conference today, where he did reiterate his hope to get his hands on those Tomahawks in this war. What are your thoughts on the developments when it comes to that?
Yes, again, another significant development here. A month ago, there was no talks about long-range missiles, specifically from United States. So this is the right step, although not immediately promised. The mere talk about the symbolism here is important, that the United States is ready to supply long-range missiles, but also Ukrainians have already capacity to produce long-range missiles, including with the European financial and military support. So obviously Vladimir Putin should be very scared with all developments very recently. And the lack of meeting in Budapest, the continuous talk about long-range missiles hitting military targets all over Russia, including 3,000 kilometers deep into the Russian territory, will continue to reduce the oil and gas capacity of Russia to export, which obviously will create an economic and financial crisis in Russia itself. So there are no good news in Kremlin at all. There is nothing Putin can do anymore, apart from and that's why you reported that they have 25 drones, which is really a ridiculous small number. All Russia can report is that they gunned down 25 drones, which is really nothing in terms of military achievement. Bear in mind that hundreds of drones are shot every hour, not tens of drones. So in a way, even that is not any military success. But Russia has nothing to report. Putin has nothing to wake up and cheer apart from having 25 only drones being shot down. Yes, as I said, more weapons to Ukraine, more sanctions on Russia, and no negotiations with Putin. All these three factors and strategies should continue day after day until the conflict is over, hopefully very soon.
Professor Veselin Popovsky, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and have you on the programme.